Hello everyone, it's Karina with Karina Loves to Plan. Welcome back to my channel. I am here for inks 6 through 10 of 15 inks in 30 days. And what I didn't show in my last video was that I started creating a grid here that will show all of the inks all in one spot. So these are inks 1 through 5, and then I'll be doing inks 6 through 10 here. Now, if you're not familiar with what I do for 30 inks, 30 days, I basically list all of them here, and then I also journal with them. I won't show that because that's private. But then in my Hobonichi A6 Hone, what I do for each day is I do the swatches on the different paper samples, and I do a Zentangle. And then once I'm done, I will do a quick review on the pen and ink pairing. All right, let's get started. The first pen and ink combination is my Esterbrook SD in Quirky Leaf, and I have it inked with Robert Oster Hemp. And this sample was sent to me by pen friend Kat. I have to remember because she sent me so many, and I'm working my way through them, and I'm just so grateful to have so many inks. So thank you, Kat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swatch on the grid here. I don't know. I have a thing for grids. Maybe because it looks like a spreadsheet. And then in my notebook, I have a very systematic way for how I do my pen and ink pairings and how I log them. For me, it's just really nice to see them all in one spot. And then here with my stainless steel nib. So this is, whoops, Robert Oster Hemp. And that's what I forgot to do, was that line here won't be completely straight. And then here we have Robert Oster Hemp. Although I think I had more room last time. I did one. And I might have to keep it at that because that's all I have room for. Then I'm going to take a pen and write down the pen and ink combination. Oh, I didn't do it that way. Gosh, I'm looking back at what I did. Oh well, I'll have to change that up. So the ink is Robert Oster Hemp, and it is inked in my Esterbrook SD Quirky Leaf. And oh, I cannot write. And this has basically an EF with a reverse architect. So in terms of lines, the way that it looks is when you write on reverse, the broad horizontal strokes and the thin vertical strokes, which looks really cool. And then regular writing, lovely and fine. So, oh my gosh, I'm writing off the page here. All right, so once I've done that, then I will give my quick review after my 2 days with this pen and ink pairing. The next thing I do is I actually take a little bit of the sample out and place it on my little palette here. And then I am going to, paint on the Tomoe River paper, and then paint on Rhodia, Regalia, Cosmo, then we have Onion Skin, Yamamoto Bank, and Bank. I love seeing the different effects that the paper has on the ink. And even when I'm putting the ink down, you can definitely see the difference. And even look on the Tomoe River paper, there's a little bit of chromo shading happening there. Really pretty. One thing I now love to do with my inks is to paint roses with them. And it's just so simple. It's a couple of C strokes and then light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. That one was kind of wonky. And then do that again. And then to get more of an effect, I add a little bit of water to my brush to get different shading. And obviously this is not the way that the ink is going to look when you write with it, but it's still so fun to see the ink be used in different ways. So now I'm drawing out the grid for my Zentangle using my ruler that I bought at Michael's 7 years ago. So I don't think it's available anymore. And then once I draw out the grid, then I'm going to start doing my Zentangle. And I get a lot of inspiration from the account Varney Kakarni, and I have linked them in my description below. But what I love about Zentangles is just the art of doing the same thing over and over again. It's meditation for me, and also learning that I don't need to strive for perfection. It does not have to be perfect, and that's what's beautiful about it. And here is the finished Zentangle with the Robert Oster hemp. I really like how one square turns into this really intricate pattern, really lovely. And then looking at the different paper samples here, how much darker it looks on the Rhodia, but the samples on the bank and the onion skin, Yamamoto bank, and bank all look pretty similar with the shading. But I also like how when I did the rose, there's a little bit of like a pink yellowy undertone here. Really, really very cool. The ink is well behaved and it flows well out of this extra fine with reverse architect nib, but it's not enough of a standout ink to make me want a bottle. I'll give the ink a 9 because it is beautiful, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of my Esterbrook SD a 10. So that is ink number 6 out of my 15 inks in 30 days. It wasn't an exact match, but it was still really quite a pleasure to use. So that is Robert Oster Hemp with Esterbrook SD Quirky Leaf. The next pen and ink combination is my Esterbrook Model J in Antique Rose, and the ink that I am using is Sailor Ink Studio 373. So this is technically ink 7. And there's hardly any left in here, so I am probably going to finish this before, well, I'll finish this by the end of this. There we go. And now I've got ink all over my fingers. But it's not an ink exploration without getting some ink on you. Oh, and I have it, funny enough, in my grid right next to Sailor Ink Studio 273. That worked out well. There we go. It's a beautiful brown, but it's got hints of pink undertones. And you know that I like my browns and dusty pinks. But yeah, I never thought I'd get into this particular line of Sailor inks, but now that I've tried it, they're gorgeous. 373 and the line across. Lovely. And then here, I think I do the lines and then, let's get this right, Karina. The lines. Oh, I love the line widths with the stainless steel nib. So good. And then my figure eights. It's not a big deal to me if they look completely different. Okay, but look at the pink undertones that are coming out in that already. Beautiful. So the ink is Sailor, oh, so smooth, Ink Studio 373. And the pen is my Esterbrook Model J in Antique Rose, and this has an extra fine nib. And my extra fines. I love my extra fines. You guys know that. Love them. And so far, so smooth. Beautiful. I think that that is a beautiful match. So now let's move into my A6 home. All right, so I've put some of the Sailor Ink Studio 373 onto my palette, and now I'm going to paint it into my Hobonichi A6 Hone. And if you're not familiar with this, this is a 2024 Hobonichi A6 Hone that I purchased off Amazon. And I purchased it because I loved the cover, but I also knew that I wanted to repurpose it as more of an art journal for all of my pens and inks. I had started something back in 2024 where I was using a Sterling Ink passport size planner, and I was using the back pages to do Zentangles. And I thought, how cool would it be to do a whole planner or reuse a whole planner just for Zentangles and ink exploration? So this is what this planner is for me. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the rose. I find these really fun to do, especially when you want to see the chromo shading effects of the ink. And Sailor does chromo shading really well. So adding a tiny bit of water to my brush. And I mean, you could pretty much achieve that same effect with a water brush. Oh, look at that. It's reminding me a little bit of Sailor Shikiori Kitsune Biori, like the lighter strokes here once you've added water. Lovely, lovely. And here I am measuring out my grid using my Michael's ruler. Sorry, I'm running out of voice here. And then once I've drawn out my grid, then I'm going to go ahead and do a Zentangle. This is another one inspired by Varney Ikakarni. I love following Instagram people and all of their Zentangles because they have wonderful, wonderful templates. And it's just, for me, really relaxing to follow what they're doing. And I'm truly inspired by them. And there's the finished Zentangle with Sailor Ink Studio 373. I really like this ink. I mean, I love the way it looks in a rose with all of the water added to it. You can see the chromo shading effects in that Sailor ink. But what I find really interesting in the different paper samples is how much, like how purple it looks on the Cosmo paper, but then how brown it looks on the Onion Skin, the Yamamoto Bank, and the Bank papers. And then here, it looks more brown pink on the Tomoe River paper. I really, really like that. But then when I'm just using it with an extra fine nib, none of those complexities really come out. You see some shading in the Zentangle, but otherwise those complexities only really come out when you're doing large swabs. Really pretty otherwise. This is a stunning ink in large swatches, but it is hard to see those complexities when you're writing with a fine or an extra fine nib. And that's actually a huge deal breaker for me. So it's not really an ink that I will be purchasing a bottle of. I'll give the ink a 9 because it's gorgeous. The flow is a 10 because it flows really well. And the comfort level of the Model J, a 10. So something that someone said in a post in Simona's Discord was that while ink swatches look beautiful and very different in larger swatches like this between different inks, when you're actually writing with a fine or an extra fine nib, it's hard to see those differences. And that actually helps me decide whether or not I'm going to be purchasing a bottle of ink. And this, while I have to admit, beautiful, not enough of a complexity when I'm just writing with it. That is Sailor Ink Studio 373 with my Esterbrook Model J Antique Rose. Pen and ink pairing number 8 is my new Le Bon Rosa in Cracked Ice, and I have Robert Oster and Venice Free Spirit in here. So let's make sure that I have that properly agitated. Where is my speedball bean nib? Let's zoom in here. So Robert Oster inks are generally lovely, but the shimmer inks always caused me a little bit of trouble. So make sure that that matches up. Okay. Then putting some on my Kakimori Brass nib here. Gotta agitate it again. But yes, the shimmers in Robert Oster ink seem to clog up my pens, even though most of them seem to work really well. Like most shimmers work really well in all of my... Oh, what am I doing? I'm supposed to just do this. And then I'll write the name of the ink after. It's like I haven't done this before. It's a beautiful ink. It's a really lovely blue with a really pretty purple shimmer. But again, I'm a little weary of shimmers in Robert Oster inks. This one has been sitting for a few days as well, so we'll know whether it starts working or not. And it still is. So Robert Oster, Venice, Free Spirit. And I somehow cannot spell spirit. And this is in my Le Bon Rosa, Cracked Ice. And this is actually now writing more like an extra fine nib should. It helps if you actually rinse out the nib before you ink it. But so far, actually, no issues with writing with that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that's going to look like over the next couple of days. All right, so now I'm going to paint some of this ink into my Hobonichi A6 Hone. And this is the 2024 version actually that I got from Amazon. But I'm painting across different papers here. So the Rhodia, Regalia, the Cosmo, then we have Bank, or no, sorry, Onion Skin. Onion Skin is one of my favorites. Love that. And then we have Yamamoto Bank and Bank. Probably my two favorites, if not for the Tomoe River paper, are the Bank and the Onion Skin. Then I'm going to paint a little rose down here in the corner. And I like doing these roses. I mean, I could do other florals, but I like doing the roses because it's just muscle practice. Not every rose is going to be perfect, and that's okay. It's just practicing C curves. And the light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. And the calming mood that comes with that. I really like how the shading looks in these roses. Perfect. I'm drawing out the grid for my Zentangle using my ruler that I purchased from Michael's way back when. I apologize, I don't know where else you can get this ruler anymore. And then I'm drawing out my Zentangle. This was inspired by Varney Kakarni, and I've left their Instagram down in the description below. But I love doing these repeating lines because once the Zentangle is done, then you can really see the shading and the shimmering effect. And the finished Zentangle, this one worked out really well considering my luck with Robert Oster shimmer inks. This worked really well in the Le Bon Rosa. And just look at the shimmer that you're getting in that Zentangle. I felt like this was the right Zentangle for this because this feels very, I don't know, groovy. And then when you look at the painted rose, you can even see some of the shimmer in there too. But even looking at the different paper samples, it feels like the ink is darker on the Tomoe River paper, but then lighter on all of the other papers. And when I'm comparing how shimmers do on different papers, to me, shimmers don't really make a huge difference or don't see much of a difference between the different papers, but the base color definitely looks lighter. Actually, even on Cosmo and even on the Yamamoto Bank, but then darker, more saturated on the Rhodia. So the shimmers don't seem to have too much difference on these papers, but the base color does. This ink performed really well in this extra fine nib, and I've had issues with Robert Oster inks in my pens before. I've only had one hard start with this, but otherwise it was really good. The shimmer is mostly consistent. So I gave the ink a 9, the flow an 8, and the comfort level of the Le Bon Rosa a 9. Yeah, Robert Oster inks have been hit or miss with me, especially with the shimmer inks, but this one performed really well in the Le Bon Extra Fine nib, and the shimmers actually were pretty good throughout as well. This was a really, really fun combination. I probably won't be getting a bottle of this because while it worked well in this pen, I foresee issues with other pens in the future, so I don't necessarily want to deal with that. It's pretty, but not enough for me to want to purchase a bottle. So that is my Le Bon Rosa Cracked Ice with Robert Oster and Venice Free Spirit. The next pen and ink pairing is my Walltown Watts in Glinda, and I'm pairing it with Pilot Roshiuku Shun Gyo. So using my Speedball B nib, oops, there's a lot there. Look at how beautiful that kind of purple burgundy color is. And then I'm going to use my stainless steel Kakimori nib to do out these lines. And then I'm never leaving myself enough room here. But it's such a gorgeous burgundy purple color. I love that. So going ahead and writing in the name of the ink, Pilot Roshiuku Shun Gyo in my Walltown Watts Glinda. Oh, it's such a wet and juicy nib, and this is a fine. And let's do some figure eights and downstrokes, side strokes, upstrokes, side strokes. Beautiful. So now I am in my Hobonichi A6 Hone and doing my paper comparisons here. And I've said this before, but I do these paper comparisons because one, they're fun, and two, I know there's other people who use these papers as well, so anything that's helpful for you. And three, they just look pretty. And I like how they look once they are all done here. Oh, look, but look at how like this dries a little bit more, I say dull, but more pinky browny gray, and then it's really burgundy down here. Then I'm gonna go ahead and paint my rose in this corner. I love doing these roses because now they're part of the whole ink exploration, but also they're just fun to do. So the center is really saturated, so I'm gonna add a drop of water to my brush and then just see the effect once you add a little bit of water to your brush. I love that. I'm going to add a little bit more. There we go. Beautiful. Love that. And there we have the finished Zentangle. It really is not surprising to me, but I think how interesting it looks that in the Zentangle, this ink looks more brown, whereas in the paper swatches and even in the rose, there's definitely more purple, more pink to it. The Cosmo paper looks very saturated purple, whereas in the onion skin in the Yamamoto Bank, it looks almost brown purple. And then this one here definitely looks more burgundy. And here it looks more brown, burgundy purple. But then in the Tomoe River paper, you get the hints of brown and pink. Really, really interesting ink. But unfortunately, in the Zentangle, you don't see as much variation when writing with it. I still think the ink is gorgeous, but I definitely think in regular writing, it looks more brown than these different shades of color. This is a lovely wet ink that would do well in extra fine or needlepoint nibs or even drier. nibs. There's some shading, but not enough variation in the writing itself. So I gave the ink a 9 because I love it. It's beautiful. The flow a 9 because actually in a fine nib, it's almost too wet. And the comfort level of my Welltown Watts a 9. Again, a really, really lovely combination. It flows so well out of this nib, but almost too much to show off any of that variation. I feel like if it was a slightly drier or in a slightly drier nib, then you'd be able to see some of that shading just a little bit more. So that is Pilot Roshiuku Shun Gyo in my Welltown Watts Glinda. And pen and ink pairing number 10 is Diamine Brandy Snap. And I have it in my new Esterbrook Esty from the Coffee Monsters Co. And can we just look at the beautiful swirls that are in that grip section? Okay. And I think it matches beautifully with Brandy Snap. So taking a little bit here and putting that on the page. I love this kind of caramelly orangey brown. And I'm doing the line widths with my stainless steel Kakimori nib. Gosh, look at that beautiful shading that's happening there. So lovely. Oh, beautiful. I'm loving this. Oh, let's clean that off properly. Loving the orangey caramelly shade of that. So this is Diamine Brandy Snap. And this is in my Esterbrook ST TCMC, a Coffee Monsters Co. And this has an extra fine nib. And let's do some figure eights, some downstrokes, side strokes, whoops, strokes, and more side strokes. Oh, such a great combo already. Looking forward to that. Next, we're going to paint some of that into my Hobonichi A6 Hone. Love that. You know, I didn't think I'd be into this type of brownie caramelly color, but then last year I used Teranishi Nostalgic Honey and I fell in love with that orangey golden brown. So I really like Brandy Snap. And seeing it on the different papers is also lovely. But I also love how the onion skin just curls up like that. Oh, really pretty. Adding a little extra here to show off some of that shading. Now I'm going to zoom into this area here and paint the rose. I do love painting with fountain pen ink. It's definitely different from painting with regular watercolor because you can't mix colors like you can with watercolor. Oops, that's really wet. So whatever the color of your ink is, it's pretty much what you're gonna get unless you start doing ink mixes in your palette. And I don't do that often, but I love painting with the inks because of the effect that happens when you add water to it. Beautiful. Here I am drawing out the grid using my Michaels ruler, and I screwed up a little bit there in the corner, but I'll deal with it when I need to. And then I am drawing out this Zentangle. It looks really cool. I think it'll look really cool once it's all done, but I made a couple of mistakes in here that I'm not happy with, but we'll see what it looks like when it's finished. And the finished Zentangle. I love the way that this one turned out because I love the Zentangles where you don't know what it's going to look like until you put all of these squares together. And then when you're trying to look at where's the actual starting grid or pattern, you can't find it because it gets lost in the bigger picture. And I love that. And then looking at the Brandy Snap on the different papers here, it definitely looks more orange. This feels very similar to Teranishi Nostalgic Honey or Diamine Sienna. No, not Raw Sienna. Diamine, I bought this ink and I know it. It's Sepia, Diamine Sepia, very close to that, but this feels like it's a little bit more orange and it feels more It feels darker, more saturated on the bank paper and more brown on the regalia paper, but look at the shading in here as well. There's tones of brown in there that you're seeing in the Tomoe River paper. Oh, there goes Lucy barking. Oh, who's at the door? Somebody is at the door. Yeah, who was at the door? Okay. So otherwise, really, really beautiful ink. A lovely pen and ink combination. Perfect flow out of this extra fine nib, although the ink did cause some bleed through in my A5 multi-year journal. And I already have so many inks that look like this that I probably don't need another. The ink I gave a 9 because it is beautiful. The flow a 10 and the comfort level of this pen a 10. So with this ink, I already do have many, I say many inks, but a few inks similar to this. I'm going to pull this out here with, do I call it orange or yellow? Because I have, you'd think I'd have this ready to go, but I don't. I think I put it in the browns. For example, Diamine Sepia feels very, very similar. And then the one that I really loved was, here we go, Teranishi Nostalgic Honey, although this one is a little bit more orange than that, but you can see some similarities between the two, although this one is leaning a little more brown. Not enough of a difference for me to want to buy that as a bottle, but it is beautiful, I have to say. So that is my Esterbrook SD Coffee Monsters Co. with Diamine Brandy Snap. So there are inks 6 through 10 of my 15 inks over 30 days. And I'll show you the little grid that I'm creating here. So this one shows all of the inks that I've tried so far. And I found it funny that I had Sailor Ink 273 and 373 on the same line. Again, I love seeing the grid when it's finished like this because I can see all the different inks that I've tried during that time. So my favorite combination out of these, it was actually hard to say. I really liked Brandy Snap, but I also really liked Studio 373. And surprising, I think I was just really surprised at how well the Free Spirit did in my Le Bon Rosa, because I didn't have as many issues as I did with Robert Oster's Sidewalk Gum. So I was very surprised by that one. All right, but that is it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And I just noticed I have 3 Esterbrooks. 2 SDs and 1 Model J. Huh? Oh well. Ooh, let's get that hair out of the way. What was I saying? Thank you all so much for watching. I will have one more video with inks 11 through 15 coming, and that will round up this session of 15 inks 30 days. Thanks again for watching and have yourselves a great day.